before you start with this Axie Infinity stuff, dude, I have gotten nonstop bullshit about NFTs these days. NFT, dude. Like big people like in this industry are calling me and asking me what they think about NFTs, and I'm like, I don't know shit about NFTs except that I appreciate them and I think they're interesting and I think they are a good use of blockchain, but I have to do some work on this, right? And I'm looking forward to getting your thoughts, Mr. Adam.
I feel like I'm in the same boat. I honestly feel like I'm in the same boat. Like there's so much happening here that I can't wrap my head around whatsoever. It feels like I need a PhD in macroeconomics to understand what's going on here.
I'm going to give a shout out because my buddy Mike Tremezzi works from Kabam is working at Forte, right? And I meet with him like at least every few weeks, right? I guess we're drinking buddies, and he lives close, right? And so every time we start talking about this shit, and I swear to God, I don't understand half the shit he's talking about, right? And so that's why I'm like, because it's so complicated and so what's the right word? I don't know. It's just
culty.
It doesn't seem real, right? It seems so fucking cultish on across all these different executions that
There's just there's so many leaps of faith that whenever you're talking to these people that they just kind of brush over, right? As if it right. That's where I start to have issue.
I think I might have done this on the podcast already, but I'm going to do it again. So, like 2 years ago, I did an interview with him, like a panel type thing, and we were just having this dialogue about it. And what I basically said then is what I kind of still believe now is that it's a chicken and the egg thing. You need to build the content that takes advantage of the blockchain. You can't just put blockchain on top of fucking content, right? You can't put blockchain on World of Warcraft or whatever. And what we're waiting is for the killer app. And so now we're starting to see these killer apps getting built, but they are fucking come out and get crushed. It's like there's nothing being sustained. And so like this is what I continue to be concerned about, whether or not these marketplaces are sustainable, and the amount of money that's being pushed into them is fucking nuts. But anyway, I'll let you continue because you have given this a little bit more thought than I have, and then I'll follow up with my.
I'm assuming that we're in terms of technology, right? We're in the stage of overhype, right? That second stage where you reach this adoption level, but it's overhyped and there could be a correction, right? But anyways, let's go into the article. Actually, I'm kind of merging three here. There's one which is Axie Infinity reaching 1.2 billion in annualized revenue, has now overtaken Candy Crush's 2020 total revenue. As well, there was a documentary called Pay to Earn, talking about NFT gaming in the Philippines, and a number of articles looking into Axie Infinity and whether or not it's sustainable. So the reports are now saying that Axie Infinity has made roughly 850 million in revenue in August. Note that is not trading volume, which sometimes gets conflated. This is actual revenue to the developer. I don't know if that's gross. I don't know if that's net, but it's comparing that against Candy Crush's 2020 estimates. Anyways, this is the point where like critics like me have to gut check our assumptions on this market, right? Because I honestly can't wrap my head around it. It still feels like a giant pump and dump scheme. There's so many of these NFTs that I'm looking on online that people are going for thousands of dollars, and it just looks like junk, right? On top of the weird things of how much value can you associate with the digital asset, you're only giving value to the blockchain address. Anyways, you've also got things like NBA Top Shots off its high, and pump and dump schemes like GameStop, right? Like there's just been so much of this happening that it's really difficult to pull this all together. And then, look, there's obviously a massive crowd of people willing to play NFT games. And this game in particular, Axie, is a meh strategy collectible game. But like it's better than any NFT game before. But overall, like my LinkedIn is going nuts with people now saying that the tipping point has happened, right? This is now a real thing. We've reached mass adoption. 850 million can't be ignored in a single month. So I did it. I dove in and I watched a documentary because I ain't playing this stuff.
You're so brave.
I'm so brave. I watched a documentary on YouTube.
Why didn't you buy some shit, dude?
I'm not going to spend a ton of money. Like, what is it, like $700 to enter into this market? I'm not going to do that.
Dude, you got your kid's college fund, right?
No.
That's what that's for, right? Just making these investments, these really smart, prudent investments.
Maybe when the price goes down, maybe I'll buy into something like this, or I'll check out the next rising one. But anyways, just watching Twitch, watching YouTube. Like this documentary, I definitely recommend watching because, look, it's obviously biased, but it's just interesting, right? Like, goes into why Philippines is really their number one market. I think it's something like 40% of their revenue and 40%
the
of
fact
the
that
players.
the Philippines is number one market is frightening in and of itself, dude. That economy is absolutely tiny, right?
And like, look, like, basically they're talking about how a lot of the early adopters in the Philippines, when they bought in at something like $5 per Axie, are now full-time workers, right? Earning something like $700 to $1,000 per month. Earning that soft currency within the game that can then be cashed out for that much money. And that's playing the game as their job, right? That's great. And especially during the pandemic when a lot of shops shut down, that's great to hear. It's just such a weird video. And actually about halfway through, it starts to feel like I'm watching a cult video or like a pyramid sales pitch, but for like Gen Z. It's weird. It's just weird. It's basically like how people are being lifted out of poverty playing NFT games, which is great. But now the entry price has reached too high that they're setting up Axie universities, which pay the entry fee for people to come in. They pay the $700+ to get into the game and then profit off of those players' engagement. And that starts to feel like a pyramid scheme to me, right? And comparing this video, I think, to a recent post, which is Axie sustainable? It makes the point that the value of Axie's tokens are really just tied to the influx of new players. Because as you'd expect, there's basically like a finite set of characters that are actually required to compete in PvP. It's the same thing in most games, right? Like proc gen of gameplay impacting assets doesn't really exist, doesn't really create any sort of fair system. And from Jeffrey Serlin, who's Axie's growth lead, the quote comes from an interview, like, as long as there are new players outnumbering the number of current players, you can make that money back, that $700, in 2 months, which, again, smells like a pyramid scheme. The article then points to Axie
like the definition
needing to shift to a real game that's fun, with intrinsic value to players besides just earning money, which goes against pay to earn, right? It's still saying pay to earn can be an incremental gain, but should not be the core focus of the game. And that the monetization of NFTs should shift to scalable assets like virtual land and cosmetics, which, to be honest, I can agree with. Like, I think proc gen of cosmetics can absolutely exist in an economy, but this type of system doesn't really work. And also points to articles by the SEC that have said they're actively looking into Sky Mavis, which is the company behind Axie Infinity, as they lack the license to conduct any regulated activity in the Philippines. Like, in general, this looks like there should be legislation coming down on it. I don't know if there will, I don't know when, but it feels weird. Obviously, I have a ton of gaps in knowledge about NFTs and blockchain games that I need to get educated on. We should absolutely bring back Ethan, because I think like 850 million in revenue just cannot be ignored. And I think, like, in general, my position is still that we are in this hype phase that is due for correction, but that doesn't mean that the technology will go away. Creature collection RPGs, perfect fit for blockchain gaming. And I feel strongly that cosmetic economies, even built on existing retaining games like Fortnite, are actually right for blockchain. So I counter Eric's point there. I believe CSGO has already proven that you can build effective cosmetic economies that are driven by a marketplace on top of an existing game that is fun. So it just feels like engagement and value are tied to a positive feedback loop, which is hype, and to the point that earn to play breaks the play experience, the game experience, when you have to pay $700 to even get in the thing, and when the reason you're playing is just for resale value. Or really what's going to happen is, as soon as there is a shiny new token in town, people will shift to whatever game is most profitable to them. So the question becomes, like, is this actually a sustainable business model? That's still what I'm scratching my head about.
Yeah, again, NFTs are just hot right now. You know, our Slack channel's been overloaded with NFT stuff. Like, let's put this shit in another channel, dude. But at the end of the day, like, you know, there's all. Actually, I was reading the article that you posted, and it's just it is a total like meme. You know, it's like this guy who is involved with this NFT is pumping this thing up, right? Talking about the first thing is annualizing a run rate for after 30 days is just not smart at all, right? Like that is a clear like manipulation of data. Whether or not that data is real, I don't even know, to be honest.
Keep in mind what they're talking about. 850 million in 1 month, right? Which is August. I think that's already a data point we should take. The whole like comparison to Candy Crush's year rate, like yeah, they had this massive spike at the end, the 850 million. Before that point, the revenue was nowhere close to that, right? But if you do look at the trailing 12 versus the 12 months that they're comparing to Candy Crush, yeah, it's comparing.
No, they're saying that within the last 30 days, they're on a run rate to do 850 million.
Is that it?
Or 1.2 billion. Yes. I think that's the way it reads to me. But again, like regardless of what the data is, I don't believe anything that they're saying, to be honest. But if you look at NBA Top Shot, when things are going well, of course we see all these announcements and stuff. They did like 230 million in gross sales in February, right? Of which they took 5%. This is the Top Shot, right? So that's $138 million run rate, you know, at that time for Top Shot. And they raised 250 million at a value of 2.6 billion at the time, right? So and that made sense because their run rate was amazing. But monthly revenue fell from 230 to 53, down 76 by June, and then 34 in July, right? So run rate went from 138 million to 20 million for their revenue. So it's like, yeah, you can do all the run rates you want, right? And now the company, I think, is worth over 4 billion or something insane, right? And so with Top Shot, there was all kinds of structural issues. The website was crashing. Transactions weren't going through. And the big thing was that you couldn't take the money out, right? So they were claiming some fraud detection thing, right? But that's bullshit, right? It took 21 days to 40 days to get your money out of this whole system, right? With relatively significant fees. So it was an artificial economy driven by lack of liquidity more than anything, right? So that was just total horseshit. But we don't see any coverage of that. All we saw was you see coverage about like the 250 million or 230 million gross sales they did the first month, right?
Yeah, which, to be honest, comes back to the beginning of the podcast. We have to be very clear about what investments we go into, because we can't be hypocritical of the types of articles that we're covering here, right? Where they're basically propping up Axie, propping up NBA Top Shots because most of the writers here are in those ecosystems, right? Yeah, we can fall victim to this. Just
I don't write any of this shit. What are you talking about? This is bullshit, dude. It's total horseshit. And Axie Infinity is going to be the same thing. Like, who's going to be left holding the bag? It is a total Ponzi scheme in a lot of ways, right? All right. So, again, I am a believer in NFTs. I believe in digital ownership of items. I think that is a very, 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 very big opportunity, right? But a lot of this stuff is crazy and cultish in its execution, and it's more of the Bitcoin type folks as opposed to actually people designing and developing real ecosystems, you know, that are real, right? It's just extremely unstable. It seems like it's built that way, you know. But this shit is happening, and so what because everyone's gotten so goddamn interested in it, I'm going to do a little bit of diligence on my own and talk to some people that are kind of experts out there that are doing it, including my buddies at Forte, and they have the rally token, I guess. But we'll see what's real and what how much of this hype is actually sustainable, you know, over the long term. But again, I just want to be clear, like. Digital ownership makes sense to me. Like owning digital assets, I think is something that is intrinsically interesting from the consumer perspective, and executing against that is going to be very, very quote unquote lucrative. But the way these things are going right now is it's all speculative. It doesn't seem to be real businesses. So, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is what it looks like for first movers in this space, you know. So I don't know. Yeah. Any other thoughts, Adam?
I don't think you should be coming to TWIG for NFT news. Obviously, we're the old guys in the room being like, what the hell is going on the ground floor?
No, I don't know. I feel like I feel like there's a lot of money going into this, and that's why all the products that are coming to the market are just too fast to the market. And because we haven't seen till this date that these games can actually generate significant revenue, a lot of so-called serious game developers haven't really invested into NFTs and haven't been making the push, or they are by now, but their products are not yet out. So we're kind of seeing the first iterations of the products coming out with NFTs that don't really make that much sense, but they are just the only ones in the market, and that's why they're succeeding, and that's why their lifetime is so short. But I think in the future, I'm as bullish as you guys about NFT. I think it just needs a little bit of a time for more seasoned developers to come in with products that actually make sense, where the NFT is a crucial part of the whole economy.
I still feel like the NFT portion can be cosmetic and optional. Like when we say like it has to be part of the core, like I think this can exist in a Fortnite ecosystem where the gameplay is fun and retaining on its own. There's live content there pulling players back, but cosmetics is the one system that NFTs touch, which then is scalable and valuable given how much engagement the base game gets.
But you would have to have some kind of a trading then in Fortnite. For example, like if you earn certain skin, then you should be able to also sell it. And then when you sell it, then Epic would take a cut out of that sale.
Yeah, that's literally how CSGO and PUBG have on Steam.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of what my diligence is going to try to be, but the legal implications of that are something that these big publishers can't do, right? Mm-hmm. If you're cashing out, I mean, that is an issue.
Yep. This is exactly how CSGO got into all that hot water when they had loot boxes in their game. People were gambling on those loot boxes. Yeah,
Big Fish, did the same shit. So at the end of the day, it's like, this was the point that they said when I was like kind of pushing back on this NFT thing. He's like, well, dude, this is what people said about mobile, free to play. It was never going to take off. I'm like, no. I wasn't saying that at all back then. I mean, I wasn't a naysayer on free to play, dude. I'm saying, like, there's no rules. It's like there's no rules on this. This is like total pump and dump shit. Like these articles that are written are nuts. And so anyway, I'll do more work on it. Maybe I'll have some kind of rant or some kind of investigative journalism going on here on what. How about this? More on the idea here. What's the angle? What's the future of this? Like, what does it look like when it is established players that are actually building ecosystems that are actually sustainable instead of like, go up to like $1 gajillion and then come down to zero within like 2 months, Like, what does that look like in the vision of these entrepreneurs? Because these guys at Forte have been doing it for years, right? This is not like they've been building these tools and technologies for years now, so they must have some kind of idea what the end game looks like. So,
yeah. The thing is that they don't know games, and that's why I think it's not clicking yet, but I think it's just a matter of time. But
like Forte's got a lot of ex-Kabam, right? Very smart people.
Yeah, they have some gamers.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see.
Right, I gotta
definitely have them on the podcast and discuss these type of stuff. So, yeah, let's do that. But let's end this podcast.